Hi everybody. Thank you for joining us. I think you'll just be coming in through the webinar now. We've hit the start button. So I will just hang on for a bit as people have started to join. But whilst that's happening, hello, I'm Claire. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm from Cult Pens and I'm delighted to welcome you to our workshop this evening, which is going to be led by Becca Hall, who will be guiding us on using Tombow ABT markers and Irriheaton pencils. Had to think about saying that. Hi Andrew, thank you for joining us. If everyone likes to post, Andrew started already posting in chat, post where you're dialing in from, that would be lovely, and we can see how international we are today. It's really exciting. So yes, as I was saying, Becca's going to be guiding us on using Tombow ABT markers and I'm going to say it wrong now. Got it right first time. Irriheaton pencils, got that, to create some autumn themed artwork. Now we have shared some images in the reminder. There was a link in the reminder that went out earlier, but we'll try and share that again in the chat. If you're not already following Becca on social media, then you can do so by searching for Becca Hall Illustration, and I'll share all the details on that. And you can also find more of Becca's classes on the Patreon platform as well. So if you like what you see today, you can sign up with Becca on there. So whilst Becca's getting ready, just a couple of points of housekeeping, as we usually do. It's lovely to see everyone joining us from all over the place. Thank you very much. We anticipate that the session is going to last about 45 minutes to an hour. So make yourself comfy. As usual, we are recording the session and we will share the recording with you in the next few days, as soon as we've managed to get it all edited and loaded up. So if you do miss something, you will have the chance to have another look, but also you can ask questions as well as we go through. So if you do want to check on any details or ask for something to be repeated, I'm sure we can manage that as we go along. All your cameras and sound are switched off for the duration of the session. But if you do have any questions, you can use either the chat that everyone's posting in at the moment, which is fantastic, and there's a Q&A function as well, which you can use. So either of those will be fine. And Hayley and myself will be on hand to answer your questions. And where we can, we will very gently interrupt Becca as we go through to answer some of those. So do feel free to ask questions as we go along. Depending on how we're doing for time, we may have a bit of time at the end to catch up on any questions too. So if you're ready, Becca, let me see, I'm just going to adjust our cameras. Then here we go. I think we're going to be side by side. Let's just switch that over. There we go, that's better. So yeah, Becca, if you're ready, then over to you. And I'm sure everyone would like to learn a bit more about you. So perhaps you'd like to share a bit about yourself and where your passion for art and illustration started. That would be a lovely start to the evening, I think.
Yes, okay, well, hi everybody, and thanks for coming. I think there's a large group of you here, so yeah, thanks so much for taking the time in your evening to join us and draw some autumnal animals. I am Becca and I'm a freelance illustrator. Sorry if you can hear my dogs just conveniently choosing to drink water now. That is the sound in the background. But I graduated from Manchester School of Art back in 2014, and I've been a freelance illustrator ever since. I illustrate children's books. I design my own range of giftware and cards and prints, which I sell all around the world. I've done illustrated maps, and I've created Christmas hamper bags for Lakeland for a few years running. And at the beginning of this year, I started my own Patreon. And I've seen in the chat when everyone was saying where they're from, I recognise a few names. So thank you to those patrons that have come along tonight as well. But yeah, on there, basically you can subscribe and pay monthly and access tutorials and advanced techniques videos and sketchbook tours and live Zooms just like this one, and we can kind of all draw along together. But my main passion is drawing animals. I think when people say what do you like to draw, it's always animals, and I just love giving them character and kind of bringing like personality to them. and I recently discovered, well, say recently, it was over a year ago now, but these ABT brush pens from Tombow, and they are just a joy to use. They're so good when getting shapes down and things for animals when you're feeling a bit kind of overwhelmed with what to use. If you don't have them tonight, I think the list of what I'm using is has been sent out, and I think it'll be as part of the recording and everything as well. But feel free to use anything kind of you like, and just kind of watch what I'm using. If you've got the same colours, I'd love to see what, well, hopefully on social media, but see what you share and things using those. But I will kind of start from the beginning, because just for those of you that don't know much about the brush pens, if possible, Claire, I'd like to kind of go to my desk.
Yeah, here we go.
Through a few things.
So we should, yeah, all done.
Perfect. And so brush pens, the ABT pens have two ends, but they just have one cartridge, so it doesn't really matter what end you use, you will use all the ink, which is great about them. They've got the nice big kind of brush side, which we'll be using a lot of tonight. Do feel free, if you've got any, to just play along with me here. And yeah, you can use the tips to kind of get a really nice fine line. That's great for adding things like fur, or just when you want to add little bits of detail, but also using the side of the brush to get this really nice kind of flat shape. But then you also have the other end, which is much more kind of a fine liner end, which is even finer than the tip here. They are water based, so you can add water if you've got any water and a brush to hand, and they'll just they don't bleed like a paint would. They kind of bleed a bit slower, but they create a really nice texture doing that. But I really love how they overlap, so you can create lots of different shades and patterns, and you can also layer up the same colors as well. So it means you don't have to buy loads of different colors to be able to get different tones of the same shade. You can just go darker and darker, and once it's kind of drying, because it's obviously water based, you might find that if you're going too heavily too quickly, your paper might start to pit. I'm actually using the Tombow Bristol pad, because it's really good for soaking in the Tombows, but you can just keep going as you're seeing there's darker shades coming through there, and we've got some lovely different greens as well. And just have a play around if you've got some, even if you've used them a lot before. I always quite like kind of at the beginning of a session, just seeing what colours, kind of how they create different colours when you mix. When you blend them when they're both wet, you can actually blend the colours together like this one. So even though this is bright yellow, we're creating this kind of ochre-y colour, because this green was still wet, which is really nice. And it means, again, they're really versatile in that sense. We also have some of the, Claire, I don't know if I'm going to get it right now. I've written it down.
I feel like Hayley, if you can put your sound on, would you like to do a proper pronunciation? Because I'm not sure I got it right.
Yeah, they're called irrigation pencils.
Excellent, we got it. I think I said it right. I have to just think about that a little bit.
Yeah, irrigation. So yeah, they're really nice. They originally came out in a pack, but I think now you can get them singly, and they are available in this pack that I've put together. So I just kind of chose a couple of my favorites that we can use for tonight's drawing, and it just basically adds nice texture on top, because the Tombows are quite flat, and even if you're adding in some texture, with your finer ends, it's kind of a much chalkier texture when you're kind of using the pencil crayons as well. And when I'm kind of working my sketchbook, I'll always blend Tombows with pencil crayons just because it adds the extra dimension. And then I've also got the mono twin just to add like a nice outline. You can use, like, we've got the N57, which are actually like really nice dark grey, and it goes really dark when you layer. So you can use the thinner end of this one as an outline as well, and that creates quite a nice outline. Yeah, sorry, it's Tombow, which is the brand for the pencils I've just seen on the chat. So I thought like we'd get started by like, just, I don't want to kind of suddenly throw you into it like, right, we've done some testers, now let's go and draw, because I know that sometimes everyone is kind of like, oh God, am I gonna be able to do this and stuff. So I thought we'd just have fun and practice layering and the pens and stuff by drawing some nice autumnal leaves. So I'm just going to work kind of on this end. And I'm just basically choosing different autumnal colours from the pack. Feel free to use kind of whatever you have, but if you hopefully have the pack and you can join me. So I'm just using the 933 at the moment. And I'm just literally going to get some nice basic leaf shapes down. And I'm going to do a few in like different colours and shades and stuff as a first base, and maybe like only colour in half, because it's just quite nice kind of thinking differently about what you can do with the pens. You know, it doesn't all have to be a block colour. You could literally just do like the skeleton. And we really are just keeping it quite simple at the moment. I might draw a little kind of acorn because we've got a nice dark brown. We're not kind of thinking too much about how everything looks. It's just getting a nice feel. And it doesn't matter if like you try something and you're like, nope, that colour didn't work, that doesn't go with that one. Like for instance, this yellow, because it's a lot lighter, it doesn't kind of really show with that orange. So I'll just try brown.
Becca, I was just sharing, we've got the set of 12, which are the colours, the autumnal colours that you've chosen. I was just sharing that with everyone in the chat, and the pencils. But do you, I mean, it doesn't sound like a trick question, do you have favourite colours? Like I know we're talking autumnal at the moment, so do your favourite colours change as you go through and do different projects, or do you actually have a, like, I don't know, I'm partial to yellow or a particular
well,
something?
This one, N60, is like my absolute go-to. Even if I'm taking out, like if I'm going on drawing a location, I'm like, right, I'm going to take one brush pen and a couple of pencils, it will be this one. Just because it's that really nice shade of like purpley grey, and people that have been part of my Patreon and stuff will know this is my favourite, because it creates a really nice kind of shadow. So if you're kind of wanting to add shadow to things, it just does it so easily. But also it's just that nice friendly kind of color if you want to draw like more in mono. So you've yeah, maybe you're doing like gray backgrounds and then you're adding some texture in with like a mono pencil or something. And yeah, and like for animals, adding a bit of shading and shadow into them, because it's not just like a grey, it's actually got some really nice tones in it. So that is definitely my favourite.
That's a great colour.
Having with animals, it's always quite nice having like a light base, because lots of animals are like brown, but they might be lots of different shades of brown. So I'll often start with kind of a nice light creamy beige, and then you can work on top of it and add different tones onto it. So that's always a really handy one. So that's 942, and they're quite nice together as well. I've drawn them separately, but they're a nice kind of duo tone as well. Whereas the bright ones I love, but they're more specific, so I get to use them less, which is always upsetting. I've got a big kind of pot of them, and there's some bright ones that I think I love this color, but I just need to find something to use it with. But the greens are really nice as well, which I've put my favorite greens in this pack. because I think greens are often really hard to find that aren't just like lime green, or when they say grass green, but it's kind of the brightest grass you can think of, whereas these have really nice kind of duller tones, which just make them more accessible for drawing on location and drawing kind of everyday life, especially in England where not all bright all the time.
It's very autumnal. I'm feeling it looking out the window. It's very dark.
Yeah.
we just had a question just before, and I think it was about the pencils. I think you answered it about them. Do they feather over the top of the ABTs? And Andrew, I think that was your question, but pop something into chat if not.
Yes, just what, as in like, do they kind of go over them quite nicely? Yeah, you can kind of see there. That one's you have to wait until your Tombow's kind of dried, as you can see, because the Tombow's quite wet here. It's not showing that strongly. The drier your paper is, the more it will show on top. So you can kind of use that to your advantage if you're wanting it a bit duller and like kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of not as obvious. Do it when it's wetter, and then if you really want to show that texture, just wait a couple of minutes until it's dried. And if you just give it a go and it's not quite there yet, just wait a little bit longer. But yes, they do go nicely on top.
Thank you, Andrew. Do the Tombow markers feather over the top of each other rather than the pencils? Sorry, Andrew, that was me.
When you say feather, what? Sorry, I know you can't like speak back, but what do you mean? They kind of, you can blend and you can like layer, but I don't know. They don't. I don't think they feather as.
Does the ink spread out? And I'm guessing. No, but if you used a water, but you're talking about using water.
Yes.
And getting them to blend a little bit, so you could perhaps create something with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you use water, they would bleed more, and you can definitely blend them, but they don't run into each other just by layering them. But yes, if you add water, so it might just have a bit. It's quite dirty water, but just see how it goes. So it kind of just takes a little bit of time. I think my water's, I've obviously been painting with red, but it does kind of start to bleed, and in the end you get a more watercolor kind of effect when you use them. But you just have to kind of do a bit of trial and error kind of to get the right amount of water for the look you're giving. If that makes any sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Lovely, thanks.
Hopefully you're all kind of feeling like you're getting to know them. So I want to, so we don't run out of time too quickly, I would like to move on to drawing a fox. So hopefully you all got the link with the pictures we're drawing from tonight, so you could have a look. If you don't, I know that it will be kind of attached with the replay. And if you really want to draw along now but you can't find anything, then you could just kind of follow what I'm doing on here. So I'll tell you what colours I'm using as well. I'm going to be using 912 as a nice base. It's kind of a bit of a pinky yellowy orange, and then we'll be going in with 933, which is much more of a bright orange. We'll probably use a bit of the N60 for some shadows. The fox has got some really nice dark legs, so we'll be using N57 for that one. And then we'll be using a bit of this pencil crayon, which is tangerine orange, just to give some texture. And I'll use the mono twin as well for the details. So what I would typically do is kind of block out the animals with shapes. It can always feel a bit like, where on earth do I start? I kind of tend to start around the head. That's what we'll be doing today. But try to just completely forget that the fox is 3D at the moment and just kind of almost try and flatten it in your mind's eye. So I would create the head just by doing kind of this kind of oval shape and quickly colouring it in, because you want to have a nice flat colour at this point. The longer you take, the more you'll kind of get texture with these pens. And then we can add these ears in, but because they're lighter on the inside, we do want to just try and give the shape. It doesn't really matter too much if you don't need to kind of focus too much on the shape. It's just try and give you an idea, because you can change it a bit later. Because the nose comes out but it's half white, I know that can always be a bit like, how do I do that when I'm thinking about white space? So we're just going to do like kind of rainbow N shape where just at the bottom of this oval, and then join that in to the side of the face bit. We're kind of going to leave this body bit where it's white on its chest, but we're going to do this kind of avocado shape. If you watch any of my videos, they're often made of avocado shapes. It's literally the only thing I can think of with this, maybe like a teardrop, I guess, raindrop. The thing to remember with Tombows is, and I get this with every time I start an animal, is you'll think, what is this? Like, what is this going to be? Because it is weird. You're building an animal up from shapes. And so, like, for instance, now if I just quickly move to the N57 for the legs, I'm just thinking, I'm just going to do 2 stumps, and it will start to look a bit like a kid's drawing. So I've just added some feet in there, but don't give up. And then you can fill in this space because it's orange underneath. Just keep going and just kind of have faith in the process and yeah, in where you're going with the drawing. This photo, I don't think we can really see the tail, but I really like fox's tail. So I'm just going to bring one out, but I'm not going to draw the end because they have nice white tips to the end. And then we can see this kind of orange fringe coming down here. So I'm just going to use the very tip of the Tombow to just get a nice light idea kind of where we're going. And then we can go in with the 933. So this is much oranger. If you're feeling like it's not really going to do much, it might just be because your original Tombow is quite wet, but we'll see how it goes. It does sometimes need a little bit of layering, and I'm just kind of looking at where the dark bits are. If you want to, you can colour over the whole thing, but to give it a bit of light and shade, I find just kind of trying to almost blur your eyes when you're looking at the photo to see where the darker bits are. Obviously with the tail you have to kind of make it up, but often if in doubt, do the bottom because it's more likely to have shade on the bottom. And then I'm going to kind of do each side of the nose, because then that helps give it a bit of shape when we come to it. The forehead. I'm just like blending around those ears a bit. And again, using the tip to feather out. If you get little bits of pitting, don't worry about it. Like, that is normal. There's just a lot of ink and water going on, so you can just kind of lightly brush it away, but just be careful not to like kind of brush it onto your paper too much. And then we can use the, I don't know if I put this down, but the 942 just as a like nice light, put that there, creamy bit. I'm using this to kind of create the fur, so I'm not going in flat with this because I want to start adding texture to the fox. And I'm going to put some in the ears and maybe a little bit on that side of the tail. Okay, it's starting to look more like a fox, but then for me these legs are too light, so this is where the layering comes in nicely. So N57, just going over it again. It's really nice to create the dark bits on animals with a colour that's not black, because it means you can add more light and shade, whereas a black is very bold and then it's kind of hard to add that. And even though things look very black on an animal, there is often light parts in them. And you can then just kind of use this time to blend a little bit more. Hopefully everyone's following along. I'm going to just add a little nose now where we've kind of just underneath where we've put that white space. Mine's quite small. It is like if you've done a wider one, that's actually more accurate, but it still works. And the nose is just kind of like a down facing D. That's how I always feel like animal noses work. And I'm also just going to put a little bit of texture in the ears. And then hopefully it will be dry enough to use some of the pencil crayon. And so we're just going to try, I'm just going to sharpen it, that'd be good. But we're going to try and add some texture. It's a very similar colour to this Tombow, which is why I left some lighter bits as well, just because then you can like blend it together and give that really nice fur. And also you can add really nice fur to the kind of outside of the box, so it's less like this block shape now. You're following it down the body. And those nice kind of wispy bits on the side. Its face a bit. I always love putting a bit at the top of the nose. I think it adds some nice charm. And then this is the fun bit where we get to add the character in. So with the mono twin, you've got two sides. You've got the kind of thicker marker side, which is good when you're doing bigger drawings or calligraphy or writing or anything like that. But for animals, I think it's quite nice to have the thinner side. What's really good about the mono twin is it's oil based, so it won't bleed at all with your Tombows, even if you decide to go back over it with Tombows. Obviously it'll kind of come through, but it won't blur in, which lots of fine liners you'll find will. So you'll add a bit in, and then if you think, oh, I'm just going to add a bit more of the ABT, and then it suddenly bleeds, but these don't, which is really great. And they're just a nice black ink, which is great for detail. So with the outside, I'm just kind of being aware not to have a solid line, but I am going to add a bit of thickness on the ear just because we can see that hint of black. And just try and be as free as you can. You're following the shape, or you're correcting the shape if you feel like your ears are quite, like slightly the wrong kind of shape or size. But I'm following the kind of flow of the fur. And putting that nose, so the nose you're doing kind of in that loop under where the white bit is, but then you can bring in the nice side of the face, the whiskers. And then the eyes are always quite tricky to think of where to put them. You'll slowly start to kind of imagine like, oh, if I'm putting it down here, it's going to look like it's really looking down, or if they're really close together, it's going to look kind of almost like a bit unintelligent, but same for being like really wide apart. So you'll slowly kind of just start to learn like whereabouts to put them. But I really like kind of mid height, mid width as well. Feel free to just follow that nose up a bit more.
I've actually been trying to colour in with you, and we've had some questions, but I've been busy colouring. Sorry, everyone.
Ask away.
Do you ever use Sakura? I think that's fine liners. Someone's asked about Sakura fine liners.
No, I haven't actually heard of those.
I think they would work. From my limited experience, I think they would work just fine. In the question that we've had, but give it a go. Let us know if you're testing those out at home at the moment. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, anything that's kind of waterproof will work fine. Like for instance, the uni ball actually works okay with them. It occasionally blurs, whereas the monotone never does. But yeah, if it says waterproof on it, you're likely to be okay.
Yeah, we've just got someone else confirming that Sakura definitely works. So thank you for that.
Oh, good. Team effort.
I love it. We're encouraging everyone to use what you've got if you haven't had a chance to get all the right products and test everything out.
Yeah, there's so much out there with materials. It can feel a bit like, oh no, if you know, I can't do it unless I have everything, but that's not the case at all. So yeah, I'm basically just kind of going over what I've already given myself as like this template, but I'm just making sure I'm kind of adding in some nice hairy fur lines. And don't be afraid to kind of do it on the body as well. You can do it as much or as little as you want, but just try and follow the kind of flow of the fur, and you'll get a much more realistic look. I'm just going to add in a little foot here. You can see how this pen's getting really nice and dark now. I mean, obviously you can, if you're not quite finished, do feel free to finish it in your own time after the class, but I'd love to fit in another one, so I might leave that one there. But if you wanted to, like, just really quickly, if you're kind of finishing it off, or later if you want to finish it off, just putting I'm putting the 192 underneath just to give it a bit of seam. I'm putting kind of some grass in there, and there's the 228 as well, which is a really nice greeny colour. And then I've just realised I talked about N60 and I forgot to put it in. So if I was putting shadow on this fox with the N60, I'd just kind of put a little bit like on the tail and underneath here, a bit on the fur. I don't want to put like too much on this light area because I don't want it to turn purple, but I just want to kind of hint at it. And then also just under that nose and in the ears, and it just suddenly kind of lifts it a bit.
That just suddenly adds so much character to the fox's face. Yeah. That was like magic.
Yeah. It is a magic.
That's made such a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I think like I am happy with that. I could keep going and just adding lots of different textures in, but hopefully you can kind of all play kind of a bit later if you're not finished. But otherwise, if you're with me and nice and speedy, we will move on. So we want to do this little hedgehog next, and hopefully you've all got it. But I'm going to be using the nice 942 as a kind of light base, because obviously those prickles are really light. I know hedgehogs can be a bit kind of daunting because they've got so many prickles on them. So I'm just going to show you how you can kind of get that effect really easily with the Tombows. So just like last time, we're going to create a shape. If anything, this one's a little bit easier because it's just kind of this round pudding. So it's, again, I could say almost avocado, but we're just kind of creating this round, and I'm going to quickly just completely colour that in. Doesn't really matter about the direction or anything, because it's just the nice base, this hedgehog.
Becca, whilst you're colouring, someone's asked about if anyone in particular has inspired your illustration style.
So I absolutely love Quentin Blake. I grew up kind of loving all the Roald Dahl book illustrations, but I also really love Catherine Rayner. I don't know if anyone has heard of her, but she's a Scottish illustrator and children's book writer as well, and she creates beautiful books, beautiful characters, and I was introduced to her work in my foundation year and just fell in love with how like she creates personality, she gives personality, and I thought I would love to be able to do that in my own way someday. So yeah, she was a massive inspiration for me. With the face, because it's obviously coming towards us, I'm just kind of going to do like this little kind of poke like that. Again, not really thinking too much about 3D, just thinking about where it sits on the body. We just got a little bit extra on the right, but then mostly on the left. And we can feather down just on the bottom to help create some of these nice hairs coming out. Feel free to kind of also like darken it a bit on, we want to give this hedgehog some shape. So I'm just going to start to darken it now. And then I'm going to use the 947, and this is where I'm going to start to give it some nice prickles. So again, I'm going to use the brush side and just try and think about leaving enough space for its head. And if you're nervous about how much, it's always better to kind of start higher, and you can work your way down when you're feeling more like confident about where it is. But I'm just going to create really loose, kind of basically that all over it, following the shape of the hedgehog. So I want the prickles to come past the line of the shape that we've just made. And I want to be really loose. I don't want them to kind of like be perfectly like this, because when you do that, it can look really stilted, whereas you actually get much more of a nice impression when you're looser. I'm just going to do that across the whole body. And on this side, we're going to kind of put them close together. You'll notice, because there's lots of ink here, it's starting to blur together here, but I don't mind that, because that's going to help give it, again, that like nice 3D shape. And I'm not going kind of all the way down over this feathering. If you have, don't worry, you can just make it a bit bigger and add more at the bottom. I'm also going closer together where I want it darker, so I'm kind of putting way less gap and light underneath, and suddenly it's starting to look like there's more light up here. I'm going to hint at those ears, because that really helps me think about what's going on where. The good thing is, if you feel like you put them too high, you can just turn them into prickles. And you can go darker again if you have it, the 899. And I'm not going to do a full covering. I'm just going to add some bits in, but the same pattern, the same kind of idea. Hopefully you're all starting to see hedgehogs taking shape. And we're going to get, let me just test. Yeah, okay, so the 912, if you're ever in doubt, it is quite nice to have like a scrap piece of paper or something where you can test the colour to see kind of, is this going to work? Obviously there's not really much going back once you've started, if you do it on your illustration. So yeah, I'll always have another bit of whatever material I'm using to test the colours. There we go. But we can layer this 942 a bit now, because I want to have a bit of shadow, help give that shape. And we want some little legs. So before we do kind of more for this little hedgehog, literally just put in 3 little legs there. because it'll be quite wet if you've done what I've done and layered a lot up. So we don't want to kind of try and ruin it by attacking it with pencil crayon just yet. But we've got these gorgeous leaves that it's on, and this is where we can have a bit more fun and just like do some really nice big leaf shapes. I did some tests earlier actually, and like the yellow goes really nicely on top of the 192 because you get that nice kind of autumnal, like it's turning. You can try it the other way around as well and see how that sits. There's also dots of red in there, so we can add in the red as well.
Becca, no rush at all. I'm just letting you know it's 6:40. We've just passed.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll be able to get this one done. So yeah, I'm just going to play with playing with the different greens. It doesn't matter like if you go over a bit of your hedgehogs, it kind of will make it look a bit more like it's within the leaves rather than just kind of perched on top. So if anything, it actually is nice to just work around the hedgehog a bit. And have fun, like I know they all kind of look quite beachy leaves, but maybe put like an oak in there. I love oak leaf shapes and some twigs. And I want a bit of a kind of more of a base, so again I might just put the 912. I know it's quite bright, but just underneath, because then we can add the N60. And just have that multi, it's kind of like a brownie shadow then. And yeah, just kind of keep going and maybe try different patterns on the leaves. What's quite nice is once like your leaf has dried a bit, you can add in those lines, even with the same color, it'll layer nicely. And then we can hopefully go back to our hedgehog, where we can add a bit of texture. I'm going to probably use both of these. We've got the sallow and maple sugar. But again, feel free to test them. Just so
a great name for a colour, maple sugar.
I know. They're all named really like nice names actually, these pencils. So I'm just kind of, again, like I'm having to press quite hard because it's not fully dry yet, but just to bring out some of these textures of the hedgehog. And some of these kind of shadows as well in the legs. It always seems a bit weird until you put the eyes in, and I don't know why I always wait so long. I've messed up many an illustration by doing everything around it and then putting the eyes in and thinking, no, that's not how I want it to look. But hopefully that's not going to happen. So creating a mess as usual.
Do you always do the eyes at the end?
Yeah, I think, yeah. Just because like often I want to put lots of shading and stuff on the face, and even though it doesn't blur, I just kind of like to know that nothing's going to affect those colours. And I think you can really help yourself by adding in shadow and stuff before you then go to add details. It makes it way less scary because you've kind of guided yourself and helped yourself of where you might put the eyes. So if we pop in the nose, again, the same kind of shape I'm going at, but I'm not going to colour it all in because I want a bit of light on the top of that nose. Add in a bit of texture. Love whiskers as well. Animals and whiskers, very cute. again, and just kind of guiding like the nose, because that helps me think about where I'm going to be putting my eyes. So this hedgehog, they probably look like they're more up here, but I think I'm going to lower them very slightly, just so it looks like it might be, I've sniffed something out. Yeah, and I always like to do dots for eyes. I feel like you can, when I try and do more realistic eyes, for me, that it loses like that kind of cheeky personality. I think it's just because I've never quite got down like the realistic eye look, whereas I think you can do a lot with just a dot for an eye.
That's adding so much character, same as the fox.
Yeah,
without feeling scary as something to, as a non-drawer myself, as a trier, I should say. It's that feels achievable, but it's adding so much character in. It's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you're not having to think, okay, well, it's got a beady eye and it's kind of on the side, and how do I think about that shape? It does make it a lot easier.
It's often so difficult to get them the same when you're making them more elaborate and going into more detail.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not going to, again, like I'm not going to draw every prickle. I'm just kind of going to do a few to try and give the idea, especially around the edge, but it doesn't have to follow the pen marks you've done. You want it to feel quite kind of scraggly almost, I think. And I might use a bit more N60 and N57. So N57 for the kind of maybe dark shadow, we can, because it's really dark underneath. Just help kind of make it stand out, and feel free to put some on the leaves so it blends together. And then I'm going to use some of that N60 on the body so that the shadow kind of goes up into the hedgehog. And I always quite like doing the shadows like fully at the end with the N60, just because you've kind of created your animal and then you can see, right, where just needs a little bit of lift and therefore where needs the shadow. And just blending that in. It's just really fun to kind of keep playing and seeing like how far you can take it, like how much you want to. I've blended just by kind of this feathering technique, like blended the two shadows together so it doesn't look like it's just kind of stood on top. And again, I'm just going to add, oh, nearly the wrong side, add some of this side of the face. And then I kind of think you don't want to end up overworking your animals, where you just kind of keep going, and then suddenly you're like, oh no, it was better before. So I'm just going to add a little bit of detail into the leaves so they link, but then I think we'll finish. But I'm really liking kind of some of these tones that I've managed to create with such a limited palette. Yeah, there's like some gorgeous kind of autumnal colors, and I would love to do more with this like color palette, because I think there's lots you can do when you've got yellows, browns and greens and a bit of pink. There's a lot that you can create with it, especially if you're wanting to draw nature. And I'm hoping everybody's managed to create something that makes them smile, whether it's something they're proud of or something that I think, oh goodness, I need to have another go. I hope it's been fun.
And you, as it's that season, if you wanted to do something a little bit festive and perhaps do a card or something using these, because they're quite festive. I mean, I know they're autumnal, but it is sort of that time of year, and it's really cozy. They're really cozy autumn winter animals. Well, is there anything you would add to make it a bit festive, or do you do that yourself? Do you do drawings for your Christmas cards?
Yes, all my Christmas cards, I'll do drawings and then I'll scan them and get them printed so that I'm not kind of sat here trying to create however many individual Christmas cards. But yeah, these would like be really nice for that, because you can do so much. I think if I was going to make it festive, might have added a cheeky hat onto it, so I would have like kind of left a bit of space, and with this red just done like a little Santa's hat.
That would be adorable.
I also really like interaction between animals, so maybe I'd put like a little snail and then a present, you know, as if the snail is like, let's just celebrate Christmas together. And so I did that this year with some animals, and a little robin was gifting a present, and actually that's like a really nice smart factor.
Yes, and someone's just suggested a robin. Yes, very festive. And
Yeah.
the colour palette would work actually really well for that too.
It would. Yeah, it would. It's got some lovely colours for robins in there. So yeah, I think that's done. But I absolutely love, I love this guy. So thanks so much for coming along. And I might go back and add more of this into this when after the session. But yeah, I think they're nice.
Fantastic.
I'm gonna get them both in there.
Yeah, squeeze them in.
Oh, there we go.
Just about. Love it. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm going to take the spotlight off your. Actually, I'll leave it on your beautiful artwork, and I'll just appear as well, just to say thank you so much. That was brilliant. I hope everyone's been drawing and colouring along. I've got a slightly chubby fox because my proportions are a little bit off, so I'm not sharing him just yet. But I feel like with a bit of reworking, I could make him less chubby, so that would be good.
Yeah.
But I love the simple addition of the shadow and the layering of the colour. And then as you add the face, it's just the simplicity of the eyes at the end. The whole character of the animal comes to life. It's brilliant. I feel like I can do it, which is really exciting.
Good.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. We would love to see all your creations, please. I'm not sharing my picture, my artwork, whoever's just asked that. Maybe when I've reworked it. Thank you so much. If you would like to share your creations, we would love to see them. So if you can share, then please do on social media. We've got a hashtag which is Cult Pens Creative. So if you hashtag whatever you share, then that would be fantastic, and we'll be able to find that. And I'm sure Becca would like to have a look as well. So I'll just repeat, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you search for Becca online, it's Becca Hall Illustration, and I'll share the details with you all again once we have the recording to share as well of the session. And you can also find Becca on Patreon if you want to do some more of this and do some more animals, which would be marvellous. What was the other animal, Becca, we shared in the link? We had a fox, a hedgehog, and there was
a squirrel. Yeah,
there you go.
Squirrel.
Perfect. Yeah. So as I mentioned, we have recorded the session. So if you've missed anything, you can go back over it, and the recording, hopefully it'll just give us a little bit of time, a couple of days, but we'll share that out to you all. This is the end of the session now, so I will be closing down the webinar shortly, and I'll just do a quick check to see if there's any other questions that we can answer before we do that. And as ever, you can email us at help@cultpens if there's anything else that you think of afterwards, or you just want to get in touch. Anything else you prefer to share your artwork via email and not on social media, that is fine too. So just thank you so much, Becca, for sharing your time with us this evening. That was absolutely delightful. Thank you everyone for joining us. We've got one workshop next week on Tuesday. We're actually doing something completely different, and we're going to be drawing on windows. Yes, windows. Doing a bit of alternative Christmas decorating on windows. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So if you'd like to join us for that one, I think it's 6 o'clock on Tuesday, UK time for anyone that's international. We'd love to see you at that one too, and we'll share all the recording and all the information related to this one as soon as we can. We'll hopefully see you all soon at the next workshop. So take care and have a lovely evening. Thanks again for joining. Bye everybody.